Hello everyone, welcome to Azure Psych, and today I want to talk about a concept that I think is simple, but something that's also forgotten and quite important when we look at personality type and the personality typology community. And that's the idea that your personality type doesn't define who you are or the type of person you are. It doesn't make you a good person or a bad person if you are a specific personality type. And I want to talk about the reasons for this and why some people tend to forget this and think that your personality type essentially defines you. Let's get into it. A few weeks ago, I released a video called Cognitive Functions Are Lenses, Not Actions. And the general idea behind this video was to remind people that cognitive functions are just a lens in which we see information through. It's not the actions we take after we see the information. It's simply the way in which we process new or existing information. So what this really means when you look at it on a deeper level is that your cognitive functions are just kind of like your colored lenses. They're your way of interpreting new stimulus, new stimuli, and they're not going to define how you as an individual react to that new information. It's simply more so going to be what about that information sticks out to you and what about it is important to you right off the bat. Say, for example, we have an individual who's an introverted thinking dominant type, so either INTP or ISTP. When they're engaging with new or existing information, their first concern is usually going to be along the lines of what is the logical or structural nature of this thing that I'm interacting with? Is it logically sound? Does it structurally make sense? Is it coherent? These types of things. What's not going to happen, though, is that their actions are not going to be defined by their lens in this particular situation. So say, for example, the introverted thinking type sees something that they disagree with or they think that is not logically sound or correct. This doesn't mean that they have to be a jerk about the situation. It doesn't mean that they have to be kind of pushy about the other person being wrong. They can just as easily say, hey, look, I don't think this is correct. I don't think this is right. I just want to inform you about that. If the person is not fully developed or they're struggling maybe with their mental health, they might find themselves in a place where they're going to react more, neurotically. They're going to be more upset about the situation. But it is not the function in and of itself that defines how the person is going to react to the situation. We might see that there's tendencies, for example, with introverted thinking dominant types who have repressed extroverted feeling, they're more prone to being upset or outwardly emotionally angry, rage, these sorts of things when they get upset or when they spot something that is incorrect. But it doesn't define and mean that they have to respond in that specific way. To go further with this example, imagine now we have an ESFP and an INTP, and they're both presented with that same logically incorrect system, supposedly logically incorrect system. The ESFP is usually going to be interested in kind of the novelty, the uniqueness, how exciting some new system is, or what it means for them or their close friends and maybe their close community. Is it going to be something that they can use or interact with in a way that's going to be exciting or exhilarating to them? Now, the INTP, again, is going to focus on that logical soundness or the logical correctness of the system that they're interacting with. These two types have many different ways in which they can both react to that information that they're seeing. The ESFP could be saying, look, this system looks really interesting. I don't know much about it or how it works, but I think it's really interesting or cool. Or they could also be along the lines of, this thing's really boring and I really hate it because it looks boring and it's not really interesting to me and it's probably dumb too. The INTP, on the other hand, could be someone who's like, hey, look, I think your system needs some work. I would be willing to maybe tell you what I think is wrong with this thing. Or they can say, look, you're an idiot. I think you're dumb. I don't think your system makes any sense. The general idea here is that the cognitive function doesn't define how you react to a specific situation. It only tells you what information is important to you when you're interacting with new information. Personality type also doesn't define your interests or values as an individual or even the field that you're going to end up working in or enjoying throughout your life. Yes, we see strong tendencies when we look at certain personality types and the types of fields that they end up in, but this doesn't one-to-one correlate, and this doesn't mean that they always have to be in these specific fields. What's also really interesting to note is that there's plenty of people who have a specific personality type who end up in a field that is not usual for them and find great satisfaction in it. Now, this is going to be much rarer, but it is certainly a possibility. For example, many psychologists and counselors in the world tend to be INFJs. I, as an individual, am an INTJ, and I want to work in the psychology and even counseling kind of fields, and I want to help people get through problems and help them deal with their mental issues. I am not an INFJ, but I still value those types of things. But as an INTJ, I'm bringing my specific kind of lens to that interaction. I'm going to be seeing that field differently than how the INFJ is going to be seeing that field. Just as if you took an ESTP and they were a counselor, it's going to be something that's not as common or as likely, but they're going to have their own specific take on that field. And you might find that they actually could be quite good at it, and it's going to prevent that field from becoming stale and too much of the same thing. When you have too many people working in one specific type of field, and they're all the same personality type or really similar to each other, it turns into this thing where they're just kind of getting into a feedback loop. Nothing's changing. There's no progress. You find that you toss somebody in there who's not the usual type of person who would be in that field, and things can really grow and evolve from where they were. The main kind of point of this video and what I'm talking about today is that your personality type, especially in the Jungian system, is not going to be something that defines who you are, how good or bad of a person you are, what you're going to be doing with your life, these sorts of things. It essentially is just saying, this is how you interpret information, and this is the thing or the things that are going to stick out to you when you're interacting with information, people, situations, these types of things. As an INTJ, for example, I tend to be looking at the concepts and ideas related to the things that I'm interacting with, and these are going to be the things that stick out to me first and foremost when I'm interacting with these new things. This doesn't mean that how I react given that information is going to be defined by my specific personality type. Yes, some INTJs may respond in a specific certain way to certain situations, and you might find that that's quite common for that personality type. But just because you have that specific lens doesn't mean you have to react in a specific way or you have to do something in that sort of way. How you are as a person is controlled by you. If you're a good person, if you're a bad person, the way you treat other people, these are all things that are not dependent on your specific personality type. You have control over these. And I want people to remember that when they're thinking about personality type, that just because you're an INTP or an INTJ or any NT or ST type doesn't mean that you have to be bad at people or disregard their opinions or their values. Just because you're an NF or an SF type doesn't mean that you can't be good at thinking or you can't do things that are usually associated with the fields of logic or organization or thinking in general. You can go beyond your usual type's boundaries. All right, everybody, I hope you've enjoyed this discussion, and I think some people might respond to this questioning, well, can every type just do everything? And the answer to that is essentially they can. There's going to be certain types who have a much harder time doing certain things compared to other types, but in theory, a human can do really anything that they want if they set their mind to it and they, are physically and mentally capable of doing so, as long as there's not some sort of limitation there. But I genuinely believe that anyone of any personality type has something valuable to bring to almost every field that they could potentially work in. So if you are an ESTP and you want to work in counseling, go for it. If you're an INFJ and you want to work in statistics or analysis, go for it. If that is what's valuable and meaningful to you, then follow it. That should outweigh your personality type's typical, stereotypical values. You as an individual, your individual values are going to outweigh what the type says about you. Your type is just a way of processing information. The values that specifically are first apparent to you when you're interacting with new information. All right, everybody, let me know what you thought about this down in the comment section below. I would like to remind everybody that I do have personality typing sessions available at my website at starpsych.com if you're interested in working with me to find out what your personality type is and what that means for you. This has been Asura from Asura Psych. Have a good one.